The credibility of the prosecution's key witness in the Frank Smith's extortion trial was today thrown into question. Under cross-examination, Barbara Hanna, the owner of Magic Touch Cleaning Services, was questioned on how she was able to pay the former Public Hospitals Authority chairman $5,000 per month if she was also borrowing the same amount. It's alleged that Smith extorted the amount from Mrs. Hanna for procurement of a contract to clean the Princess Margaret Hospital's critical care block at a monthly cost of $43,350.89. Leading the defense case on the issue, Queen's Counsel Keith Knight showed Mrs. Hanna the copies of 3 checks, 2 in the amount of $5,000 each, the third totaling $400. Now, while the witness acknowledged the first 2 checks bore her signature, she couldn't say the same in the case of the third. Mrs. Hanna was further questioned about being sued by Finco Bank regarding non-payment of her mortgage, a question she said she would not answer. However, Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt cautioned Mrs. Hanna on what she could and could not answer. At the time, lead counsel for the Crown, Anthony Delaney, objected to the defense's line of questioning, citing relevance. QC Knight explained to the court that his line of questioning was to show 2 critical points: the probability that the witness said that took place and the impossibility of it being true based on her circumstances. The trial continues. Now, nearly 20 workers terminated from the gaming board. Bahamas Public Service Union President Kimsley Ferguson confirming as much, adding that the fired group ranged from administrative assistants to revenue collectors to managerial staff who were given no just reason for their dismissal.
The exercise was supposed to have been persons who were contracted shortly before the general election. However, we want to make it clear that these persons who were terminated were actually permanent and pensionable employees, and the union takes grave exception to the manner in which the gaming board abused its power in an unceremoniously terminating the employment of members of our bargaining unit.
Mr. Ferguson says the union was told the firings were the result of a manpower audit and a restructuring exercise, but that's not enough. The BPSU chief also took issue with the fact that the gaming board did not consult the union as mandated by law to do so, adding that should this have happened, packages or pension payments could have been negotiated.
If the government is exemplifying this type of behavior, then it will be a precedent that the private sector may want to embrace. And so we are very, very concerned that this particular matter does not go unchallenged. And we are demanding that these individuals be reinstated.
Now, it's important to note that the workers were compensated for the years worked, but Mr. Ferguson argues that they have a right to be employed until 65 years of age or 30 to 25 years in order to collect their pensions. Some months back, Gaming Board Minister Dionisio de Aguilar noted that the organization was dysfunctional with eye-popping salary scales that would be under review. Now, there have been some opposing views on the state of the financial sector. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis has said that the sector is dying and that new economic pillars must be created. Former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram has come out to say that there are many parts of the financial sector, and while private banking may have taken a hit due to tighter international regulations, the sector as a whole is dynamic and evolving. While weighing in on the matter today was economist, offshore banker, and former FNM MP Lester Cox. Cox said that the international community, in particular the European Union, are arrogant extortionists, adding that several of the European Union's countries do business in the same manner as the Bahamas, but still they criticize the Bahamas.
And it is notable that Oxfam, which is one of the most respected NGOs literally in the world, has been around almost since I knew myself, has criticized the European Union and accused them of whitewashing the status of those members of the European Union that conduct banking business in the same manner that we do. And so it's reasonable, I think, to ask, what is the difference between us and them? There's only one way that we are going to be able to have a chance to minimize the impact and try to turn back the tide. And that is for all of us, all Bahamians, to sing with one voice. This is an assault on our economy. It is an assault on our people. It is an assault on our sovereignty. And it shows complete disregard for the sentiments and the dispositions of the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Cox said the Bahamas must defend the country and fight harder against the European Union, as they seem to be bent on destroying the Bahamas' financial sector.
And they are the enemy. If someone is trying to destroy your country, they are your enemy. And the sooner you recognize that, and your language reflects the fact that you see and know them for what they are, your chances of success are greater, Mr. Jones.
He added that politicians must fight and not sit back while sanctions are placed on the Bahamas that threaten the financial sector, as the concessions of being quiet are not worth it.
Whatever we get from them, we could do without, and just peanuts. You understand? These people have an agenda that conflicts with the survival and well-being of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And it is incumbent upon all of us, and the political directorate as well, to resist.
Cox currently serves as a financial advisor for several offshore companies. He was at the time calling in to the Love 97's show, Issues of the Day. Now, several leading international human rights organizations have issued a scathing statement against the government's December 31st immigration ultimatum. The groups are calling for an immediate halt to deportations and the development of a written immigration policy that respects human rights and international norms. It would also see to it that detention is only used as a measure of last resort and include the details of processes available to those wishing to regularize their status, screening processes to avoid the expulsion of individuals born in the Bahamas with a right to Bahamian nationality, and processes to assess asylum claims with all procurial safeguards. According to local rights group Rights Bahamas, the signatories are Amnesty International, the Caribbean Institute for Human Rights, the Center for Justice and International Law, the Center for Immigration Observation and Social Development in the Caribbean, Institute on Race and Equality and Human Rights, the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights and the Washington Office in Latin America. The stern advice comes in the face of reports of violent and inhumane immigration raids. Just last week, images surfaced of a child who allegedly suffered severe facial injuries during an apprehension exercise in North Andros. Well, while he opted out of responding to such stories making the rounds on social media, Immigration Minister Brent Simonet did make this point.
On one side, you may have a potential where immigration officers may have stepped beyond the line. On the other side, you should go on some of these raids. We're not picking up nice people. There are some people there that can be violent, can be threatening, can be aggressive. So we have to balance this act. And unless I know of the ones that I see going around in social media, it's very difficult for me to deal with any officers that may have overstepped them.
And it's a portion of those very same sentiments that Rights Bahamas is crying shame on. The organization says it's nothing short of reprehensible for Minister Simonet to attempt to justify alleged human rights abuses by suggesting that vulnerable, defenseless people somehow deserved it. Such victim blaming, says the organization, has long been the hallmark of reprehensive, xenophobic, racist regimes and has been used to stigmatize and intimidate target groups, thereby legitimizing all manner of violence and abuse. Rights Bahamas says it's never been a question of officers sometimes overstepping the mark, but rather a question of the legality, violence, abusiveness, and pervasiveness of the entire enforcement policy from start to finish. Meantime, the minister encourages anyone who may be a victim of aggressive behavior during immigration raids or have witnessed it to speak out.
If anyone feels that there has been an apprehension exercise that has been conducted wrongly, to please contact me. Because unless I know about it, there is nothing I can do about it either.
You're watching JCN News. There's more news straight ahead.
This segment of the news was brought to you by Alive.